getting started. Doug, do you want to kick us off?
I will do that. First off, I want to welcome everybody on what is been a typical chilly and cold day in DC. You know, coming from the west, I've been used to wind chill factors, but it's not something that's typical in DC until this last week or so. And it's been fairly cool for us with temperatures in the 30s and wind chills taken down to the low 20s. And I know some of you from the far west are probably rolling your eyes, but we're doing the best we can in accommodating and moving forward. The town that right now is getting ready for inauguration, and a lot of nomination hearings are going on right now, and it's been pretty active and lively around DC. And we are already getting warnings of road closures next week for the inauguration and for many of the other events that'll take place early next week. Pretty exciting time to be in the Capitol, and I was at an event last night talking about a moonshot for ag research R&D, and I was very pleased to hear all the speakers talk about the role and value of our land grant universities, about ag research, about not falling behind. And we had some really good supporters I think are going to help us through 2025. And I like to remind myself we have a lot of really good Democrats that are still around and will be great advocates as we move forward and work on funding for the future. I want to welcome you to the webinar, and really we have 3 or 4 purposes. We've got several speakers that you can see across the screen right now. We're going to go talk a little bit about the relationship between Carrot and Oz and why that's so critical. Chris Robert will do that. Connie Kays will talk about a little bit the history of Carrot. Chris is the chair of the administrative head section from the University of Missouri. Connie is the chair of the Carrot organization from Kansas State University. Connie's also going to give us a reminder of what resources exist that we can use. And part of the reason of having this webinar right now is to prepare our delegates and our deans and participants in the BAA Carrot Washington conference meeting at the end of February to kind of give you a working knowledge and get your hands on some of the materials that we'll be discussing when we get together in person at the Watergate Hotel. Then Jake Tibbetts, who's incoming chair, our Carrot delegate from Nevada, is going to give you a very personal invitation to come see us in February and be part of what's shaped up to be just an amazing agenda. As incoming chair, one of the responsibilities and privileges is to help chair the planning committee for the conference. And so Jake's going to give us the most recent information on where we're at with that. And then between myself and Bruno Fuentes, we're going to talk about how do we look at the unified ask and what that looks like. Unfortunately, Keith is on an airplane somewhere across the country and is not going to be able to join us. And Elizabeth is not feeling well. And so Bruno, thank you for stepping in. And I will lead that conversation, and Bruno will be the color commentary when we get to that part of it. And then we were going to end with really Andrea Putman, who's our Vice President of Communications Marketing, talking about how we be effective in our strategic storytelling. And that's very critical because more than one time I've been to a congressional office and our Carrot delegates are there and they're interested in you. They're interested in your story. They're interested in what connection you have with your land grant. And so we're going to spend some time doing that. And it'll be pretty exciting to maybe be a little more intentional in how we frame that message and be ready for our visits to the Hill. Well, with those as interesting comments, I just want to now stop and introduce Marcus Glassman. You should be seeing Marcus on the screen. Marcus is our new executive director for Carrot. Started January 6th, and in honor of him starting, we had a snow day January 6th. So he got to work from home on his first day at work, and he spent this last 2 weeks onboarding. And Marcus and I met this morning, and the final agenda items for onboarding will be completed on Friday. And so come Monday, we're going to flip the switch and get in the fast lane. And we talked about priorities, and the first priority is to connect well with the Carrot Executive Committee and get ready for the Washington Conference. And just excited and thrilled to have Marcus on board and be a part of our team. And I don't want to be remiss in not recognizing the role of Flannery Bethel. And Flannery has just been an amazing support through this process. If you did not know, Flannery received a promotion next year to manager of the Carrot group. 75% of her time is spent helping Carrot and supporting Marcus, and then 25% of her time was with our advocacy committees in the BAA, the budget on legislation and policy, the budget and advocacy committee, and helping, I think, strategically look at how we can get Oz, the administrative head section, more engaged in the work that we're doing, not just in the engagement and supporting your CARE delegate, but how you can more individually become involved in supporting our advocacy efforts and amplifying that national voice. You will see that the seminar was on the calendar for 2 hours. I'm not sure we're going to be here for 2 hours, but we want to make sure our speakers have adequate time to cover their topics. I would encourage you to use the chat function or the Q&A function if you've got questions throughout. And instead of waiting till the very end, it'd be good to put those in front as the people are speaking. And that way we'll be able to answer those questions. You can raise your hand if you have something immediately you want us to get in front of, and we'll try to recognize and honor that. And I'm going to ask Flannery and Marcus to help backstop me on all of the super controls that we have on these Zoom meetings to make sure I don't miss something. And as I said earlier, speakers, please keep your mic muted until it's your time. And once the slides start, if you want to turn off your video until it's your time to speak, that will be okay and appropriate. So with that, a little bit of introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Chris became our incoming chair of the administrative head section back in November at the annual meeting. Chris brings a lot of background and knowledge working with administrative heads in Carrot. What I am most enthused about is that he has a passion of how we can work together to make this a stronger organization. And so I'm going to give Chris just a few minutes to kind of share some things that he's thinking about. We will have the Oz Executive Committee, Oz General Membership, and a joint Carrot Oz meeting at the February conference. And so Chris and I'll be spending time formulating what that looks like and what those priorities are. So with that, Flannery, I think you can hit the slides. And you can, there we go. Chris, I'm going to mute myself. It's up to you now. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all of our speakers.
Thank you so much, Doug. I'm delighted to be with you all this afternoon. I am the incoming chair of the administrative head section, or a group known as Oz. I'm in this role because at the University of Missouri, I serve as the Vice Chancellor for Agriculture and the Dean of the College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. So let me start by saying that most, if not all of us, are products of the land-grant education system. And that land-grant mission, it's in all of our DNAs. It's reflected in how we work together to advance U.S. agriculture. As a Carrot representative for your land-grant university, you have a unique, a very special opportunity. And you would naturally ask, well, why is that? Why can't the dean simply talk about the university's agricultural programs? Well, speaking for the deans, we do that. We can and we do that every single day. However, our message is far more impactful when a producer shares how the university benefits their operations. The policymakers, they respond when a grassroots effort testifies to how federal programs are making a difference to their families on their farms. So, in preparation, I would invite you all to review the Carrot Rules of Operation. This document provides background information to the land grant system and its efforts to interrelate extension, research, and academics. The purpose of Carrot, clearly expressed in the rules of operation, describes citizen advocacy, and that is an important aspect, so I'll repeat it. citizen advocacy to support the land grant mission. In this document, you can all read the objectives for CARET. CARET is to be a citizen-led coalition working with the land-grant university leadership to advocate to the federal government and its agencies. Through your personal stories, CARET delegates pursue national support for and promote understanding of the benefits derived from the land-grant universities. I now will highlight one important aspect among the responsibilities, the many responsibilities for a CARET delegate: to simulate cooperation and communication among citizens and user councils and boards to achieve broader public awareness and appreciation of the land grant system. In other words, we need you to share your stories. So please talk with partners, policymakers about how you work with Extension, or perhaps how university research has helped your farm or your ranch. As a delegate, you're appointed by your university leadership, those universities who are actually paying membership dues to APLU. Now, your university can name as many CARET delegates as appropriate, and every appointment is for 2 years. They terminate in December in the second year. So if you happen to be on your university's payroll, guess what? You cannot be a CARET. As a CARET delegate, you will participate with your university leaders, the deans, at an annual meeting in Washington, D.C. That's coming up next month, and you'll hear more about that. At the meeting, you'll learn of issues and challenges while discussing best practices for land grant advocacy. And at the conclusion of that conference, you will participate alongside your deans and other leaders in visits with members of your state's federal delegation. You'll present them at that time with your story describing the importance of the land grant support for their continued support for the land grant mission. So you and your dean, and oftentimes your university government relations offices, will discuss strategy and apply best practices during those brief meetings with members of your federal delegation. There are other opportunities that as delegates, you can best serve your universities. Your service goes beyond just this important meeting next month. As an example, CARET delegates can make great guest speakers across the state. You all can sell the benefits derived from Extension and the land grant mission. Our delegates, CARET delegates, you're at liberty to host events with congressional members and staffers on campus. And you're always licensed to speak with local and state leaders about your experiences and benefits that are derived from interactions with the university. So in conclusion, CARET delegates are critical, tremendous partners to the deans and our land grant mission. Together, we can future-proof that land grant mission to help bring security to U.S. agriculture. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate your comments. And as I said earlier, you're going to hear a lot more from Chris as we kind of lay out our vision and some priorities to really help the administrative heads become more engaged and participate at a higher level moving forward. Next, we're very pleased to have Connie Kays, National Chair of CARET from Kansas State University. Connie's into her second term as National Chair, and we look forward to her leadership as we have our big kickoff with the February conference and then get into our stride for the rest of the year. So Connie, thank you for being here. Thanks for your enthusiasm and commitment, and we look forward to hearing your words.
Thank you, Doug. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to Chris for his wonderful comments, and he's been so supportive of the CARET program and the role of involving deans. We appreciate that very much. So I'm very pleased and humbled to be the current chair of the National CARET organization. It's very much a pleasure, and it's a tremendous group of individuals that I work with. Raised by an extension agent mother, so she drove 5 kids through 4-H, and each for 10 years. So I grew up with extension just at my ground roots. So it's a pleasure to give back. Carrot began in 1982, and it's amazing that you think that's 43 years ago that a group of deans had the foresight to put together that kind of an advocacy group, and the things that their ambitions for that group. It's amazing. As you look at this particular slide, you'll see our logo, and often we don't take a minute to think back and look at what that logo really means. It represents the Carrot organization, but it represents the 4 regions and the 1890s by the 5 points of the star for the things that we represent regarding agriculture and our love of the land-grant system. It also represents that the Carrot delegates champion the land-grant university's mission, which is represented by the gold inner circle, which includes research, extension, and teaching. And research, extension, and teaching represent the 3 blue points of the star. So we're grateful for all of those that are online today, for our current and our new Carrot members, and to all the deans and all the administrators. And we appreciate all your involvement and support of the Carrot program. And we look very much forward to working with you in the next year and many years to come. So next slide, Slannery. As you prepare for your trip to DC, especially if you're a new Carrot member, and sometimes people that have been a Carrot member for a few years, we like to have a refresher. And one of the best ways to do that is to utilize our website, and it's located at the land-grant.org website. And the 24 members of the National Carrot Executive Committee are here to help you and do anything that we can. We hope that you'll reach out to us and ask for any kind of assistance and anything that we can do. But one of the best things that they would like to recommend that you do before you come to DC is to visit that website. As you look at, there's some, when you get into it, you'll find some quick links, and then you'll also find a Carrot portal. You can access that Carrot portal, and the deans can too, using the password of Carrot 1982, and that's all capitalized Carrot. So we're covering a lot of information today, but I know you don't have time to go through it all. But as your time presents, please go back and start looking through some of it. And some of the things I'd like to highlight today is the things that, especially if you're new, or if you're a new dean or new Carrot, and even some of the things you just need to come back and look at. There's a Carrot handbook workbook that was put together just recently. It's a great resource. As Chris said, there's some things like the Carrot rules of operation. And also, I think if you look at it, you'll find our strategic plan. And that's something we look at and we completely redo every 4 years, and we evaluate ourselves on a yearly basis. There's meeting information on that. The advocacy materials will be on it when they're completed. And also there's a national land grant impacts database that I think Carrot members should start taking more advantage of. And Andrea will tell us more about that as we go on later in our presentation today. So next slide, Flannery. In the Carrot handbook, there's some other useful things in addition to what I just mentioned, but there will be an explanation of the federal budget and the appropriations process if this is a little bit new to you or want that refresher. There's a description of our Carrot mentor program. If you are a new Carrot member since our last meeting in February, you'll be assigned a mentor from the Carrot membership that will help guide you through the DC meeting and all throughout the year. And hopefully they'll be a good resource for you. So look forward to getting an email and with an assignment for that. And also there's a list of Carrot best practices that might give you some guidance. So as you prepare for the 2025 Washington Conference, there's a lot of things to consider, and Jake will cover many of those. But as you do that, make sure that you include in your plans for the follow-up to your visits to the offices on the Hill, and also plans to stay in touch with your elected officials throughout the year. As Carrot delegates and working with the deans, we have a unique position to positively make a difference in advocacy for the land grant system. Our current advocacy goals are to increase capacity funding, increase funding for secure funding for our Research Facilities Act, and to increase competitive funding. So as Carrot members, we attend 2 meetings a year, basically, this Washington Conference coming up and regional summer meetings, and we look forward to your future involvement. And again, as I mentioned, if any members of the Carrot Executive Board can help in any way, and of course, with the addition of Marcus and Flannery in place, please let us know how we can help. I'd like to personally express appreciation to Jake Tibbetts, the current incoming national chair, and who also gets the privilege of serving as the chair of this upcoming meeting, and his committee for all the work they put together to put together an excellent program and agenda for that meeting. So hope you all can attend, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. Jake, can you give us an update on the meeting?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
So for those I haven't met, I'm Jake Tibbetts, and I'm the CARET delegate for the University of Nevada, Reno. And as previously mentioned, I'm the current national vice chair and chairing the planning committee, putting together all the details for the meeting. So we are looking forward to the 2025 CARET BAA Washington Conference. It's coming up in February at the Watergate Hotel, be held February 23rd through the 26th. And the theme of the meeting is securing our future. So the focus of the meeting, it's going to be a lot on bolstering capacity and the capacity funding for our land grant institutions. With the new Congress, the new administration, this is going to be a very important year for education, momentum building, and really sharing the message of what capacity funding does and why it's valuable and why we need to bolster that. So if you have not yet registered for the meeting or worked out your travel arrangements, please do so as soon as possible. Please work with your dean and your institution to get all these arrangements taken care of. So the annual Washington Conference, it's really a unique opportunity bringing all of the agricultural research, extension, and teaching components of the entire system together. So while it is a great networking and learning opportunity, most importantly, it's an opportunity to equip us all with the information and the tools to effectively advocate for ag research, extension, and teaching, not only at our Hill visits while we are in Washington, D.C., but year round. So a quick snapshot of the meeting. Saturday, the 22nd, will be a travel day to get to D.C. It's important for everybody to get there on Saturday because Sunday, the 23rd, will be a full day of important business, and it will end with a tailgating reception that evening. So don't forget also to bring your university's colors to wear at the reception on Sunday. Monday, the 24th, will be a primary day of programming. It's going to be focused on the meeting theme, again, of securing our future. It'll be intended to provide us the tools, prepping for our Hill visits, and again, that advocacy around. We have an exceptional lineup of speakers and panelists for this session. So we're really looking forward to that. And then Tuesday and Wednesday of that week will then be focused on our Hill visits and carrying that common message across all of our congressional delegations. There'll also be a reception on the Hill on that Tuesday evening. So all CARET delegates, please work with your deans, work within your institutions to get all of your Hill visits scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday, and specifically request of those offices that you'd like the ag staffers, the agricultural staffers, to be in attendance. So what else should you know as a CARET delegate or even Oz or other university leadership going into the event? The main things are become familiar with the resources available to you. You'll get much of that in this webinar today. I again point you to the website that's been mentioned quite a few times already, the land-grant.org. So landgrant.org website for many of these resources. Touch base with your deans or your Oz member, your government affairs folks, the whole team at the institution to strengthen your team's ask. Think about ahead of time the real world and local applications of the benefits that flow from our land grant programs and the consequences if these are not funded and what could be accomplished if funding were increased. And we're going to help refine some of the thoughts around this at the meeting on Monday, the 24th. So I look forward to seeing you all in Washington the last week in February. And I thank you all for your time today. And now I'll turn it back to Doug.
Great. Thank you, Jake, and thank you again, Connie. And if you're somebody that learns through repetition, I think you've heard maybe 3, if not 4 times, land-grant.org. And if you look at the menu bar, toolbar in the middle, there's a CARET drop-down. It'll give you the information, resources that Connie referenced. It will give you the link for the Washington Conference, and we hope that you can certainly come and join us. Last year, we ran about 325 people here. Registration's at about 200 right now, and so we really look for a good turnout. And It's very critical this year of transition to have our voice, have your voice as a stakeholder constituent to come and be a part of that. It's going to be very critical for our success moving forward. We're going to spend the next few slides talking about what our priorities are going to be. Thank you, Flannery. Post it in the chat again. And a reminder that you can ask a question in the chat or in the Q&A box, or just give us a chance to recognize you and we can get those answered. We have, over the past 3 or 4, 5, 6 years, have moved to the Hill with the unified ask. And a unified ask is basically that one big amplified voice that during this week, when we're in DC together, this is the primary ask that we carry forward. Now, we fully understand that your university and your university ag programs may have asks that are apart and separate from this, but we've agreed that if we're going to be successful with some of the federal funding lines that we need for the whole system, we try to focus on what we call the unified ask, which is really top 7 lines, but it's not all that we do. If our major funding institution is National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and NIFA has well over 80 funding lines. But if you look at their funding lines and their budget, the biggest lines that come to our land-grant universities are what we call capacity funding. I think we've referenced that already, and that is funding that is dispersed based on a formula that goes to your land grant every year. And then next to capacity is AFRI, the Ag, Food, and Research Initiative that grew out of the 2014 Farm Bill. Very important for us. It's about $445 million. Currently, our request is going to be $500 million because that is, once again, competitive funding for ag research that benefits all of our institutions. What I'm going to share with you is the process. We have a budget and advocacy committee that's representative of all the sections and all these funding lines. And they start in July of the previous year working on what our draft priorities are. And then when we meet in November at the APLU annual meeting, they actually approve recommendations to go to the Policy Board of Directors for review, and their approval, they will be our advocacy priorities for the next year. So a little bit confusing. We don't have an FY25 appropriations budget yet, and we're getting ready to put our FY26 requests in front of our congressional offices. Bruno and our friends at Lewis Burke Associates will help us kind of navigate what that looks like. We don't know if we'll have FY25 passed by the time we go to the Hill in February. But one of the things that we'll talk about is making sure we don't confuse our FY25 ask that is already in play with our FY26 ask that is yet to be approved. Now, the one thing to our benefit is we've decided FY26 is not a year to make any bold, aggressive moves and trying to increase funding. A couple reasons for that. One, we don't have a federal budget right now. Secondly, we have a brand new transition administration coming in that will take office on January 20th, but it's going to take them some time to get them feet underneath themselves and get all their appointments in place and changes in leadership. And third, we've been told that this will be a very difficult federal funding year. And we all know that we have new committees that have been appointed and formed that are looking at government efficiencies and redundancies. And so we want to be aspirational but realistic when we go forward with request. And so I'm going to show you the big picture here to give you that working knowledge and background, with the understanding is when we come to DC in February, you're only going to have a one-pager. And the one-pager, the unified ask, is going to look a little bit different from what you see today. What you're going to see today is what the sections brought to us as their priorities that have been approved, along with some talking points. So you're going to have this raw information. But what is very critical is you look at the unified ask, and we're going to talk about what those areas of funding are, and then work with your dean, your directors of research and extension, potentially your government affairs folks, and individualize that message for your university. The one thing that's stuck in my mind, and Bruno has talked about this, when you walk into congressional office, if you're walking to the member of a house, they want to know what's in it for our constituents, what's in it for our district. So we got to make that very relevant. But if you walk into a Senate office, they're going to ask what's best for our state, and what are the things that are important for them. And we're going to spend the next few weeks, maybe a few months, trying to decide with a new Republican-led Senate what's going to resonate with them. But to our benefit, they're all, I think, concerned about workforce development and workforce readiness. They're all concerned about how we make sure our rural areas are thriving and not just surviving. They're all interested in the role of our land-grant universities and public universities as economic drivers of our economy. They're all interested in supporting agriculture and agricultural profitability. And along with that, we'll go addressing issues of climate and climate resiliency, soil health, and that list goes on and on and on. But the biggest difference is a dean or a carrot delegate is take what we're going to call the unified ask that I'm going to introduce to you right now and individualize that message either based on your personal experience, based on the needs of your university, based on the geographic region in your state that you are representing. So with that, let's go to the slides. And once again, if you need to, you can put messages in the chat, and we will try to answer those and move forward. So Hatch funding is funding that goes to our experiment stations. And if you do not know this, the experiment stations, also known as Ag Research Centers, have rebranded themselves to be called Ag Innovation. But when you talk about Hatch funding, we're trying to show you the big picture of Hatch funding. We're going to try to show you the trend in funding, and what you're going to notice in a lot of these trend lines, we are not keeping up inflation adjustments to inflation, which is the light green bar. And so we are going to have talking points for you to talk about how come Hatch is important. And if you look at the bottom part of this, we have fewer scientists, we have fewer research projects, and we have fewer hours dedicated to ag research because the current federal dollars are not keeping up with inflation and cost of living increases. Now, I will say this, and if you pay attention to what's going on in the government, you will have some congressional office say, so what? We think having less people is a good thing. Well, they need to understand that these less people are not government employees. They're research scientists that run the most effective, most efficient ag research and development program in the world. And we will give you some information to back that. So this is called Hatch, and you can see the amount of funding we're requesting for Hatch. We're requesting $300 million. AFRI, I talked to earlier, the Food and Ag Research Initiative. AFRI came into about, as you see, back out of the 2014 Farm Bill. Back at that point in time, we were doing away with earmarks. And we had a lot of money that was committed to agriculture through earmarks, and we didn't want to lose that. And so in the 2014 Farm Bill, we created this federal funding line that we called AFRI. And as you can see, AFRI has been one area we've been able to grow over time, but it's starting in 2022 because, once again, inflation and the decreased buying power of the dollar, we started sliding backwards. What is different about AFRI versus Hatch is that Hatch provides these research programs. AFRI provides the competitive dollars to be successful in research. And once again, one of our talking points is this last year we have data, the United States is number 5 in the world on investments in research and development. China is outspending us almost 2 to 1. And so we want to be sure that we don't lose our position as a global leader, which also has global influence when it comes to ag research and development. So currently we have the AFRI ask at $500 million. That may change depending if and when the president's executive budget comes out. Traditionally, it would come out before the Carrot Oz meeting, and we could adjust our meeting, our proposals as needed. That has not happened in the last 3 or 4 years, and so this may be one number that has the potential of changing between now and the time we come in February. The next funding line is what we're calling research infrastructure. It's called the Research Facilities Act, and this is a new line that we've just recently started advocating for. You can see we were allocated $2 million in 2023, only $1 million last year. We're requesting $2 million a year. I want to make sure you understand the difference between annual appropriations. This is an appropriation request versus an authorizing request through the Farm Bill, which is 4-year federal funding. Because we have a request in the Farm Bill to support the Research Facilities Act uh, at the amount right now of 2.5 billion a year, 2.5 billion over the life of the Farm Bill. So you can divide that by 5, and we're hoping to get a minimum of 500 million a year mandatory funding in the Farm Bill. This annual appropriation is really to help with strategic planning, setting strategic priorities, developing projects for research facilities. It's a small amount of number, but I want you to understand that since 2014, when this account was created, we have never received federal funding until 2023. Critical. It opens the door to us for opportunities and annual appropriations. We believe it opens the door through Farm Bill authorization, and we've got great support in the House and Senate on their Farm Bill recommendations that we hope we can carry that forward. A talking point that we don't want to overemphasize too much, but we got to be aware, because a lot of your congressional office and staffers are going to hear about research facilities, and we want to make sure that they understand the difference between this request, which is an FY26 annual appropriations, versus the 2.5 billion mandatory request that's going to be in the Farm Bill. Next, we have 1890 Evans-Allen. 1890 Evans-Allen is the research side of our 1890 HCBUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And as you can see, we've been able to have a little bit of at least static funding over the last 3 and 4 years when we had federal legislators that want to put more money in our 1890s to address some of the inequities of the past. They have the same concern as the 1862s: less money, less scientists, less stability for competitive funding. And so we want to make sure that we can carry the message very clearly of the importance of Evans-Allen. So Evans-Allen for the 1890s is the equivalent of Hatch funding for the 1862s, a very, very critical program. And you can see that we have a request of $125 million for FY26 and continued support of this program. Once again, I'm going to remind you, this is called a capacity formula because they're a capacity funded program, because there's a formula where these funds are dispersed to all of the 19 HCBUs, and they all have opportunities to share and invest in these Research Facilities Act. Then we have another line that's called Max Dennis, thank you, is our forestry line. Max Dennis is interesting, and you may need to have this conversation with your dean because not all the Max Dennis funding comes directly to your land-grant university. For example, when I was at Montana State University, the land-grant university for Montana, the Max Dennis funding went to the University of Montana in Missoula because that's where our forestry programs were. And so you want to be very clear on understanding where the Max Dennis funding goes in your state. But it's important for all of us because it does support research and extension programs. And as you can see, we have a funding request of Max Dennis to $46 million to continue to help and grow those expenditures. Next, please. Cooperative extension. This is what you would see coming forward to support what is the traditional cooperative extension program in your state. You can get really confused with all these numbers on the left side of the screen. The biggest thing that's going to I think resonate is the fact that this funding is what supports cooperative extension on the campus, in regional offices, your extension specialists, and also partnerships with county offices. And so you can see that we want to do a fairly big jump, moving from a request of approval of $325 million in 2024 to 420. And once again, it's really to help extension at our 1890s, our 1994s, and Smith-Lever funding. So those are our 3 big requests that support extension across the land grant system with our traditional 1862s, our 1890 HCBUs, and our 1994 tribal colleges. And we felt like this is a great way to to talk about extension's impact across the country as a whole. Next, please. And then we have higher education challenge grants. These are more aligned with the academic programs. We actually have 3 needs that we look at. One is a higher ed challenge grant, multicultural scholars, and then the program with a graduate fellows program. A lot of words in here that we will drill down for you with the unified ask of what we're trying to do. As you can see at the very bottom, the funding history from 2015 to 2020 is about 9 million. We had a bump in 2021 that was unexpected that brought us another 5 million. And in 2024, it was increased to $10 million. And so we see some opportunity and interest in supporting this line. Our request is going to be $15 million because you hear a lot of comments about workforce development, workforce readiness, the next generation workforce. How are we going to replace the current vacancies that we have across the agricultural environment that includes teaching, research, extension, and the people that actually take the jobs in production agriculture. Next, please. We are working with international programs, and this is not an ask for more money. It really is a realignment of some of the priorities that they have already. If you want to, next slide, please. I think we have another detailed slide on this one. I guess not. The request on international programs is $10 million, and it really is to try to keep us competitive with international agricultural and education outreach programs. How do we build capacity within our land-grant universities and our partnerships to have an international presence? And I think even over the course of the next few years, having a global presence is going to be extremely critical, not only to support our role as a world leader, but also I think it builds goodwill across the world as we interact and help other countries become more sustainable in feeding themselves. Okay. That must mean we got to the bottom of the slides, and so I'm going to call on Bruno to really jump in and now talk about the experiences of how you prepare that message, how do you approach the county, how your offices, and how do you take what I just shared with you, a very complex message of priority needs, and try to make that your own message. So Bruno, appreciate you being here. We love the work you're doing. If you don't know, Lewis Burke Associates is our advocacy firm that we contract with. The policy board of directors voted to extend them into a fourth year of our 4-year contract. We're excited about that. Bruno's come on board, coming out of a congressional office and a lot of background and experience, and he's been assigned to kind of help work directly with our CARET organization on how we be more effective in advocacy. So Bruno, thank you. I'm looking forward to your comments.
Great. Thank you for that, Doug. Appreciate it. Happy to pinch hit today for my colleague. Elizabeth's a little bit under the weather. But yes, to echo Doug's point, we have like really great numbers. We made tremendous progress. It's really important to hold the line here, that we don't negotiate against ourselves and we don't end up slipping backwards on some of these numbers that we fought so hard to plus up over the last couple of years. And going back to another point that Doug made is that something that I like to say is that all politics is local. So when you're talking to a member's office or you're talking to a senator, they really want to know what the impacts are in their district and state. And for some of these programs, they're perfectly tailored to that. So when you look at the Hatch Act, for example, or ask for the 300 million, well, this provides investment funding in all 50 states. So if we have funding in all 50 states, that means we have a 50-state advocacy campaign. That means we can talk about all the great work that's going on in all 50 states, and everyone should know what those projects are, and because that's something that you can highlight. And so that doesn't matter if you're in a blue state or a red state. You're having bold research that's being done. It's been an effective program. It's a program that's been around for over 140 years, and this is really part of the foundation for innovation. And going back to those local things, people want to hear about how our land grant universities are educating the next generation of innovators. That's really what you're doing here. You're creating workforce, and not just the something to help us keep pace in our economy. It's about us innovating so that we can really grow agriculture in the 21st century. And we have to do it. Our competitors are doing it. And this is another point to resonate. Even though it's local, we can talk about the local impacts, how you're educating local people, but it has a national benefit as well. So, and it's about, as these students are graduating, they're really going to be driving the economic engines of innovation. So if you have numbers at each of your institutions talking about how many of your graduates happen to stay in state, of those numbers are good numbers. They're those numbers that you can tout to your senators and representatives, so that you know that you're creating the next generation of workforce and innovation in your home state. So you go into these meetings, and I've mentioned this to a lot of folks in the past. It's going to be a chaotic atmosphere, especially in this Congress. You have a new Congress. The first 100 days are critical for a new administration. Very busy time. You're going to have the Senate in session every week. For example, that rarely happens during the beginning of a new Congress. So expect that these members and senators are going to be pressed for time, including their staffs as well. So when you come in, it's great to talk about a little bit of banter back and forth, but you really want to go into your message and get into your asks. And what I said earlier is about localizing, providing the local anecdotes to support your funding requests. And always make sure that you don't bury the lead. And that's talking about holding these appropriations in. As Doug said, we are still haven't moved forward with FY25, and we're going to probably be advocating for FY26. But that's the way Congress has been working these days. So we don't negotiate against ourselves. We still want those high numbers in 25, and even though there's going to be budgetary challenges in FY26, we want to maintain those levels and keep that hard work that we fought for in the last couple of years at that level. That's true for annual appropriations, but also for the Farm Bill in general, which we will hopefully get done in this year in Congress. And a great example of that is when we started this last year, we were looking at RFA and the Farm Bill. I believe the market was about $100 million. And when we spoke to congressional staff at that point, they tried to say that it would be challenging to increase it above that amount. But due to the great work done by this community and all the advocacy that took place across 50 states, able to get that number up to $2.5 billion, billion with a B. So that's the starting point. We're not going to go back from that. Like that was in both bills. So we're going to be fighting for that in the Farm Bill. And we're going to be fighting for all these numbers that we advocated for in the regular appropriations process as well. And look forward to seeing everybody at the CARET meeting later in February. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics about how to advocate directly with your staff. But this is the time to set up those meetings and have all these talking points. And then also to remember, this is something I do want to say, that this is just, when you have these meetings, this is a continuation of the work that you did in previous Congresses, did last year, but also that you're going to have multiple touch points with these congressional offices. This is not, I think too many advocacy groups have this one and done approach, and it's not really effective to do that. You come in for your annual fly-in and you have your meetings and you put in your requests, but then you just kind of sit back and wait and see what happens. That's not effective advocacy. Effective advocacy is that you keep on communicating with the people that you met with, whether it's staff, whether members of Congress directly. When you see them, see that a member of Congress having an event back in your home states, try to go to those events, even if it's just staff, connect with staff at these events, follow up, because as Congress has its cadence and is acting on the appropriations process, it'll happens first that the bills are introduced, and then they go to subcommittee, full committee, and the House floor and the Senate floor respectively. These are opportunities to keep on weighing in with your delegation. Thank them for their advocacy. Thank them, if they're holding the line of these numbers. If they need a little bit more work for a particular program, remind them, saying, well, this program's really important. It's been vital. You bring up that local anecdote. remind them of that critical work that's going on back home. And there'll be opportunities to either amend that bill in that chamber, or sometimes you're not able to increase a number in one chamber, but that doesn't mean that the battle's over. Because if you have a higher number in the Senate than you do in the House, or vice versa, then you can advocate for that higher number, saying, hey, we know that you fought for us really hard in the Senate, but you couldn't get RFA up to that number. But the House was able to get $2.5 billion, so that should be the number that you include in your marker bill. So that's how you keep on maintaining those touches, those touch points, and you keep on advocating throughout the entire calendar year, and you keep on building on that advocacy in subsequent years. Remember, this is not just you're advocating for the programs that you care about, but you're also building relationships and cultivating relationships with your respective elected officials, because that's what really pays dividends in the long term, that they know how important these programs are and how they impact their local land grant schools. So happy to take some questions or some other comments if you have any, Doug.
Great, thanks, Bruno. And Bruno will be at the February conference and share some additional tips as you get ready to move on to the Hill. And the one thing we always want to do is make sure we're thanking those offices for their time to meet with us and offer appropriate follow-up as needed. I think the key is not always go asking for something, but just remind them that as a constituent, you're there to support them. And we have a land grant university that also wants to support them. Coming out of the COVID, things have changed from the old days where we could communicate through letters and notes, and it's a different world and time here, and Bruno is going to help us navigate that when we get together. The one thing I would tell you, if you're a CARET delegate, you may have been assigned a mentor, and if you're a new dean or administrator, depending on what region you're in, sometimes they assign you a mentor. It would help you, I think, really to talk about people's previous experiences and how you prepare for success on your Hill visit. And if you're a new dean or administrator, you can feel free to call Chris or myself. You can do a little homework before you show up in a congressional office and find out what committees that member is serving on, finding out what their passion is. You can find a little bit of their background. And so it's always worthwhile, I think, to find a few minutes to look at their websites, and kind of the things that are important to them are the things that we want to make sure we reinforce. So we're going to do a couple more things here. One is we're going to have Andrea Putman share with us about how do you create that story, how do you personalize your storytelling. And then I ask you not to drop off too early, because we're going to come back, and I'm going to ask Connie to talk to us with her experiences and as current chair. What do you need to do in preparation for your Hill visit? And that's going to be a lot of steps that you need to be thinking about right now, because the last of February is just around the corner. And then I've asked also Jake to share as a delegate and now an executive committee member and chair of the planning committee. What does he take away as the value of investing your time and resources to come spend some time in DC? So we're going to wrap up with that. But before we get there, Andrea, I've got to preview her presentation, and excited about what she has to share with you.
Hi, everyone. We very often hear about the importance of telling our personal stories in order to influence others. And so I'm really happy for this opportunity to dive into strategic storytelling. People sometimes ask me why I do what I do professionally. Could you go to the next slide, please, Flannery? In the 4th grade, I experienced two things that influenced my choices about what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do when I grew up. Next slide. Since the time I was a little girl, and in case you can't pick me out, I'm the little blonde on the right side. The beach has been a magical, fun, and precious place for me. We spent joyous summers at the beach with our friends and neighbors, swimming, laughing, playing backgammon, playing bocce ball. In the 4th grade, my innocence was shattered when a destructive and toxic, they called it red tide, hit the Long Island beaches. The beaches were shut down. There was no swimming allowed. For the first time, I knew in the depths of my soul that pollution was serious and impacted whether I could cool off and play and splash around, or alternatively, roast in the sun. Next slide. That Thanksgiving, there was no cranberry sauce. I was told that the bogs were polluted, probably the first time I heard the word polluted, in faraway Massachusetts. I was deeply troubled. It just didn't seem to me like how the world should operate. That's when I learned that distress in other places impacted what was on my plate. And as the baby with 3 hungry brothers and a sister, I definitely wanted to protect the quantity and quality of the food on my plate. It was at that time that I decided I would commit myself to trying to make the world a cleaner place. In my 4th grade mind, that meant writing about my adventures, picking up stray trash or cans on the streets of what was actually my very pristine little town. Next slide. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate to have the great professional opportunities to work with universities across the nation and write about their impactful work. As I was putting together this presentation, I remembered, oh yeah, I write about cranberries. And I've certainly written about water and a lot of other subjects along the way. And so I feel very, very grateful and fortunate to have had those experiences. My call to action to all of you is to reflect upon and communicate your own stories and express why you are enthusiastically committed to helping advance CARET's mission. Next slide, please, Flannery. So that's why we're here to talk about strategic storytelling, which is a powerful tool to help develop, craft, and express your stories in ways, of course, that resonate, that create emotions, because that's what moves people, and hopefully inspires action and drives results, in our case, increased funding for the important priorities that we all work on. Next slide. So, what are the keys to effective storytelling? First, know your audience. And I know that Bruno and his team will be, prepping all of you more on this, but understand what your audience is, whether it's in the capital or in your home district, what their values are, what they worry about, what keeps them up at night. And then you can adjust your narrative and better connect with them. Next slide. Define your purpose. Basically, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you can align your story's purpose with your overall strategic goals, then you'll be in a more powerful place. So, are you educating? Are you trying to inspire? And again, we'll talk about it a few times, but what's your call to action? Next slide. So another key is to use the classic storytelling structure, which is beginning, middle, and end, right? So the beginning, setting up the context, and introducing the situation, whether it be the problem or the opportunity. The middle, showing the journey, the conflict, and that's the point that very often builds some tension into the story. And at the end, to kind of offer some next steps, the call to action. How does the story get resolved, or what needs to happen next to help resolve the situation in a good, productive way? So the next slide, sorry, that's a dupe. Meant to take that one out. The next slide shows, no, back one, sorry, I'm getting you confused. Another key is to use vivid visuals. Now, maybe this won't be a workable thing for you to do in a very quick meeting on the Hill, but maybe back at home, you know, a, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So use pictures, use visuals. People certainly get inspired when they see that. Next slide, please. This is really important. Make it emotional, make it authentic and genuine. People know when you're speaking from the heart, and that's when I think that they are most powerful. So when you can evoke joy, hope, empathy, that's really helpful through your language, through your characters, and other details. And sharing personal experiences, I feel like, is not always the easiest thing to do, but if you feel comfortable with that, it really does help build trust and credibility. So, and Chris, I hope you enjoyed that shot from University of Missouri. Next slide is use data and metrics. And I would say when you're telling a story, that can be very important, but don't overuse it. It can reinforce some key points, and it depends again exactly what your purpose is. One thing that is, I think, very useful if you can work it in is a statistic such as number of jobs created in your community. That could be powerful. Next slide. And then very important is to include a call to action that we've already touched upon, so that the people that you are communicating with know what steps you are encouraging them to take and how to do it. And this picture on the left was from one of the CARET meetings. I think it was last year. I can't remember exactly the date, but U.S. Representative Tracy Mann from Kansas on the left and Kim Schreier of Washington on the right are both huge champions of land-grant universities, of agricultural research, education, and extension. So I just wanted to kind of tie around to how important the work and the stories and all the work and all of the efforts are to help move the needle here in Washington, D.C. And the last key is just practice and iterate. So you're comfortable with it. You can test it on your family or friends. Tune into what seems to resonate and what could be revised, and avoid rambling. So for that section, I just wanted to acknowledge these are my sources. And I have, this is from a different source. Next slide. From a course I took a couple years ago that I thought some of this we've kind of gone over, but I just thought it was a really nice list. So stories are about people who want something, very often fixed in time and space. If you have other characters, let them use, the kind of language they would use. Of course, people's attention span are short. Speak the language of your audience in a way that gets those emotions going, and don't tell, show. that's my one little trick. Show, have a moment of truth. So just back for one sec, Flannery, please. This moment of truth, I took another course this summer, and they didn't use the term moment of truth, but they called this a star moment, something they'll always remember. So if there is something they'll always remember, show that, tell that, and of course have a clear meaning. So that was compliments of the Andy Goodman and the Goodman Center on Storytelling. Okay, next slide. I wanted to let you know about some important resources that we have here available. The National Land Grant Impacts Database goes by NIDB. And in October of 2023, APLU's Board on Agriculture Assembly began administering and managing NIDB. It is the nation's most extensive repository of the land grant system's collective impact statements in research, education, and extension. So it's an important comprehensive resource for land grant people to help tell their stories. Very easy to search and is being updated pretty well continually. I want to stress that the materials in the NIDB are the result of ongoing efforts by a large number of people from across the system. We manage it and we work with it, and we work very closely with the Extension Foundation on it, but the stories and the materials are coming from across the system. So, and I'll have the URL in a second. Okay, next, please. For 2024, we have a NIDB communications team that met and produced 30 summaries that include multiple universities, plus approximately 100 stories featuring single institutions. This NID communications team, which is about 30 communicators from across the country, will be meeting in a few weeks in Texas to produce materials based on the 2024 submissions. And that will all be available and easy to search prior to the CARET BAA meeting. And I'm really happy. I want to give a shout out to Kim Scotto from our office, who manages the NIDB and has done an excellent job. And Kim let me know just today or yesterday that we're up to 800 submissions so far this year, which last year was more than ever, and I think it was 615 or something, but previously it had been in the 500. So look forward to checking out. You can check out the current materials and knowing that there will be new materials forthcoming. Next slide. I also just wanted to let you know, in case you're not aware, that we have monthly communications toolkits that might give you some additional ideas, and those are available at agisamerica.org. And they're also distributed to approximately 400 ag communicators across the country. So, so check those out. And as has been mentioned before, landgrant.org has lots of resources for you. Also, there's the URL for NIDB as well as Ag is America. And I will say that the founder staff, me, and others, we're here, of course, to help you with anything that you might want our opinion or guidance on. So thank you. Next slide. My last slide is just, again, to try to make your story relevant to the larger CARET context, whether it be shared experiences or current events or opportunities in your community or really important impacts and results. So the picture on the left is part of the great CARET team. And very photogenic, I will say. So we appreciate all of your commitment tremendously. The picture on the right is Senator John Boozman, who is Arkansas's senior senator. He was just last week named the chairman of the Senate Ag Committee, and Bob Frazee, who is a tireless advocate and past CARET chair, and I believe is on this call. So Bob, thank you so much for all you have done. And thanks to all of you for your tremendous commitment, for telling your stories. Your efforts are very important to all of us and certainly to our nation. So thanks very much.
Andrew, thank you so much for putting that in front of us. And once again, some things to think about as you create your own individual message. Andrew will be part of the Washington Conference and has been very influential in working with our communicators and the CARET Planning Committee to think about how we can prepare our delegates for successful trips to the Hill. As we start to wrap this up very quickly, I'm going to throw a softball question to Jake as the Planning Committee Chair. Is share with us why we should come. Why should CARET delegates come to DC?
Uh, that's a good softball, Doug. Appreciate that. But and it's not just because I'm the chairman of the planning committee trying to get folks there. So that should be a reason in itself. But I say that tongue in cheek that, you know, as carrots, we're all busy people. You were designated or asked to be a carrot for your institution because of your connectedness, you know, you as a beneficiary to the land grant system, and you're a champion of that. We all have a lot of things to do, and we tend to let the things that we don't perceive of providing value to us as the things that drop off of our plate. And I think this meeting, you know, I've been doing this for a while now. I was always wondering the first couple of years, to be totally honest, of, you know, we're all shifting things and we want to go those things we feel are making a difference to ourselves, maybe our industry, and to society as a whole. So I become a champion myself of really believing the land grant system is the way to get us there, to not only strengthen our current society, but help our own communities, those communities we live in. So that's why I do what I do as a carrot. But we can only drive that change. We can only continue to provide the benefits of the land grant system if we show up to tell the story, and we show up to work within, you know, our own institutions, but across the institutions as a whole. So that's the main reason that drives me to continue to do what I do. I can tell you, if you come to the meeting, we're really trying to make sure that it's something that's of value that you can take home to work into your own personal advocacy throughout the year. So it really is of value to come. I myself would not do it if I didn't feel it was of value. So if you haven't attended a meeting, or you're on the fence whether attending, really ask you to get it in your schedule, come to the meeting, and really help us all to drive forward the mission that really will drive societal change.
Excellent. Thank you, Jake. And, you know, Connie, I don't even know how many carrot these conferences you've come to, and you were our planning committee chair last year. I thought I'd give you a second, based on your experience, what are the best things a carrot delegate can be doing, whether you've come back several times or this is your first year? What can a carrot delegate be doing now to prepare for successful conference and trips to the Hill?
Thank you, thank you, Doug. And I have to make sure that everybody knows Jake was in charge of the meeting last year. It was 2 years ago, so we have this job for 2 years. But I made a quick checklist for myself, I think, Doug, as far as what I need to do. And so I would think that would be fairly, hopefully useful for CARET members to think about. First of all, I'd probably reach out to my dean as soon as I could. If you haven't talked to them in a while, make sure they're going to the meetings, and make sure that you're on the list and that all your reappointment has been taken care of. And then I would work with them about making your appointments on the Hill. And a lot of times it's a lot of work to do those, because it's hard to know logistically how to get around. And a lot of times the university will help you do that. And sometimes, like I think at our university, the government affairs people have been helping us the last couple of years. And when you make those, even if you are in the middle of doing those yourself, make sure that you don't you allow enough time. You're going to have a hurried appointment, but make sure you have enough time to get between those, and that you're more flexible than your elected official will be. I think get ready your Hillville present. We talked about learning the committees that your elected officials are on. And then I think really sitting down and deciding what your story is going to be. And you don't have to have a lot. You just have to have a really good one, and you can repeat it at every office, but have it make it the impact and what Andrea talked about. It makes a difference, because that's the things that they remember. They remember what we say. So we need to make sure those are important. I think something that Doug would probably agree on, and Bruno, we're going to see a lot of new faces this year. A lot of new people to the Hill. Can't assume that they know really what we're talking about. So you need to become, the basics on all of the things that we went through today, the Hill, with the Hatch Act, everything, kind of know just basics. You don't have to answer a lot of questions about those. You'll have support materials, but be able to explain CARET, and maybe even do that if you do an email to them early, explain what CARET does, why you're coming to visit them, and so they become familiar with our organization. We're working to prepare and update kind of a CARET one-page leave behind, because it's hard to go through all of this when you're there. And fourthly, I think prepare your what we call the old elevator speech, which Jake has also renamed the Golden Carrot Award. Whoever, we kind of have a fun competition during the meeting of really being able to articulate your message in a very concise and fairly expedient manner if you need it. So we actually do those awards during our meetings and have kind of a fun, friendly competition, but it spurs people to get that in their mind so they're really ready to do it. And then during the meeting, we'll have Jake has built in a time where you can actually, your state, your land-grant university is going to have time to sit down and strategize about what you're going to say, who's going to say what, and kind of give you a template of what to do so that you actually have time during those meetings to get everything together. So those are the kinds of things that I think that I would do, and then I need to get going too. So appreciate it, Doug. Thanks for the heads up.
Well, let me again express our appreciation to all of our presenters for your leadership to the system, for your support of our Washington conference, and looking forward to just a really amazing conference again this year. Bruno, the partnership with Lewis Burke Associates is incredible. And I know that we've had our conversations getting ready, and you can choose to look at a difficult year and a lot of obstacles, or you can look at the potential and the opportunities. And I think we've agreed we're going to focus on potential and opportunities, and we have a great message to tell. We've got a willing audience to tell it to, and I think it's just being able to talk about the benefits, return on investments of the work that we do. Andrew, thank you, and the communicators for your role. Chris, I'm looking forward to working with you as we really build some structure around what we do with our administrative head section, and not just support in our CARET delegates, but really talk about how we have a stronger unified voice and message moving forward. And Marcus, look forward to working with you. Welcome to your new role, and you're going to have a lot of great opportunities as we lead up to February to join in and be a part of this group. I'd just like to close by telling everybody thank you for your time and being a part of the webinar. Flannery is the wizard behind the closed curtain that makes everything happen. And Flannery, in spite of not feeling well, thank you for being here to lead us through the webinar. We appreciate all that you do. Let me extend my best wishes to you for the rest of the week. And as Flannery put in the chat box, there will be more stuff coming. We're going to try to do it in such a way that it does not inundate your inbox, but keeps you informed and engaged and ready for a terrific trip to DC. And as always, if you have questions, reach out to any one of us. We'd be glad to work with you. So with that, thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thanks, Doug.